Well, I found out that my father has been having an affair against my mother. So what do? Do I keep it a secret, keep it deep down hidden, or do I expose him for the jerk that he is? Well, I've decided to do something that I might regret, but I'm going to expose him. Hey guys, I know it's kind of a long title, but please bear with me because there's a lot of background info that I need to share with you. The title explains the situation well, but there's a lot of details I still need to tell you. You folks can call me Ellis. Up until recently, I've had what you may call an idyllic family and home life. My mother Harriet and my father Walter had what seemed like a strong marriage and commitment to one another, and they helped run a successful and well-known business in the community. They've always been supportive of me, helping me find success in my own life. But I'll admit, things have been fishy around my parents' house whenever I come to visit. And things my mother have been telling me about my father, they're not sitting very well with me. As a business owner, my dad always has been a busy man. But he was working longer hours and opting to stay the night at the office instead of coming home some nights. This was way out of character for him and got me pretty suspicious right off rip. But my mom loves him so much, and she was kind of in denial about the strangeness of all of this, though. I would visit my parents as often as I did, and I'd show up, and it seemed like my father was never even home anymore. It seemed like he was losing interest in not just being around his wife, but his communication with me was just dwindling, which was not like him at all. I wanted to believe he was just extra busy with work, but I'd been feeling something inside my gut about everything, and things took a turn for the worse when I was driving through town and I noticed my father's sports car was sitting in a parking lot at Applebee's. He's got one of the nicest cars in town, so I immediately recognized it as my father's vehicle. Now, normally, somebody going to lunch at Applebee's would not be strange. I mean, they have a great mix and match deal. But you don't know my father. He earned his fortune and things like sports cars through largely being frugal in other areas of life. He always packed his own lunch to take to work to save money and just be more productive. It wasn't like him to leave the office at any point during his workday, so I was surprised to see him at Applebee's even if it was a special. I got a weird feeling about it, as this was just one more weird occasion on top of the strange behaviors my mother had been telling me about. Still, I put these doubts and concerns in the back of my mind and just decided to stop at Applebee's to surprise my father. After all, I hadn't seen him in a while because he was never at home when I stopped by the house to go give a visit. With all the drama that would unfold from this point forward, some of it life-shattering for me and my mom, I almost wish I would have just kept on driving that day instead of waltzing inside of the Applebee's. Because of what I saw when I walked in, I would never forget it. I walked into the restaurant and immediately spotted my father eating with a young, good-looking woman who looked to be about my age. My father typically never went out for lunch at all, let alone with a young female coworker who only ordered a salad. So I immediately had a feeling that something was up. I decided to keep watching for a moment instead of making my way to the table. I tried to stay out of their line of sight, and that's when I saw my father lean in for a kiss as he was paying the bill. I was crushed. My daddy was having an affair with another young girl nearly my age. In all my days, I've never seen him kiss another woman on the lips beside Mom. We're not Italians who kiss all the time. There was no excuse for this, and suddenly everything added up in my mind. The late nights, the long hours constantly working. My father was not working at all. He was running around town with a woman who looked like she was as old as, possibly younger than me. I immediately left the premises of the restaurant and leaving behind a confused hostess who simply could not figure out why I ran out of the Applebee's with tears welling up in my eyes. I drove home as fast as I could just to lie in the dark for a bit and gather my thoughts. I was having trouble processing and coming to grips with what I've just witnessed. Not wanting to be at the center of the turmoil and drama, not to mention the very real possibility of the dissolution of my parents' long marriage. I opted to keep this information to myself for now. I just wasn't sure how to go about telling Ma. I later learned that I've made a mistake there. I should have told her as soon as I found out what was happening instead of allowing her to continue living in a life of sham, stuck in a state of limbo. Because, well, what would happen next? It was even worse. So, getting closer to why I'm even posting today, about a week after I discovered the evidence of my father's infidelity, my family was having the annual chili cook-off, which, by the way, between you and me, has nothing on Applebee's. Everyone in the family, plus tons of business colleagues and friends of my father and mother's, gather once a year to see who makes the best chili. My father always wins with his Southwest chili, of course, because he runs the family and business, but it's still a lot of fun eating chili and catching up with the people I haven't seen in quite a minute. This year, I went to the chili cook-off nervous and a bit uneasy, just knowing that it would not be the same. How was I supposed to interact normally with my father and my mother, knowing the truth about what was going on? This was the first year in over a decade I did not make my own chili. My excuse was, I've been busy with work. But when I told this to my mother after she greeted me at the door, I could tell she did not believe a word I just said, since I always make time for the chili. To make a long story short, I started drinking a bit too much beer, just to calm my nerves. Normally, it was just the men at the function who drank beer, but I told everybody I really needed a beer. I kept knocking back beer after beer, and before I even realized it, I was intoxicated. That's when I dropped a bombshell that altered my life forever. My father made a rather crass and rude joke about my ma, which I won't repeat here. He had imbibed in the booze a bit too much himself, as he was often prone to do so. Normally, I would not have thought twice about it, but something about the audacity my father had to disrespect mother in front of the family, and business colleagues, of course, when he was the one being a dirty, no-good-for-nothing cheater. Before I realized it, I let it slip. At least, Mom wasn't cheating on you with a young man at Applebee's the other day, Dad. Everybody present at the party gasped. My mother's eyes immediately lit up. I knew it, Walter, you dirty cheater. Oh no, the fight ensued horribly. I'll spare you the ugly details, but boy, it got rough. The chili cook-off was called off early, after Mother and Dad had the loud public confrontation in front of everybody. I was too drunk to drive, so I had to stay the night at my parents' house that evening, and oh boy, I avoided them both like the plague. I noticed my parents slept in separate rooms, and I just regretted what I've done. The next day I woke up in the morning and snuck away without a word. I didn't want to deal with the fallout of all this. Things are getting a bit worse, and that's why I've all come to you today, so I mentioned how my parents co-own a successful business, right? Well, my mother's now threatening to take her chunk of the family business, which is now greater than my father's share. He's absolutely freaking out about this, and he's calling me up all hours of the day and night, blaming me for the dissolution of his marriage. My dad keeps saying I'm the one who's responsible for all this, so I'm the one who needs to fix it. But I told him I'm not the one who made the decision to cheat on Mom. So guys, I just don't know what to do here. Am I the a-hole for exposing my father's affair? Now it looks like I'm going to be the reason my parents split up, and the reason my parents' business they work so hard to is just going to fade into obscurity. I can't believe my world's been turned upside down in all of this. To top it off, my father came clean about his mistress, Lena. She's 24 years of age, so my father's fooling around with a girl who's a year younger than his own daughter, and he admitted he's still seeing her. I don't know how my mom has to put up with this for so long. I'm at the end of my rope. I just need some help. What do I do? What is up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story, Looks like OP's father got caught with his hand in the cookie jar because he is in trouble. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this story. If you're new to the channel, if you want to support it, just go ahead and click that subscribe button. About roughly 5% of viewers are subscribed to the channel, and it helps me out so much. There's multiple updates for this story, and if you think it was crazy this far, oh boy, you're in for a ride. Well, here's the next update, update number 1. Let's jump into it. Hey guys, it's me, Ellis. I'm back for an update. First, I'd like to thank everybody who took the time to leave good advice and supportive remarks. I'm appreciative of you all so much for allowing me a space to vent my problems. Okay, now on to the update. I wish I could tell you that everything has been neatly wrapped up into a little gift box, but things just kept getting worse. My father's not stopped calling and texting me at all hours of the day and night, AM, PM, it doesn't matter. I don't want to have to report him for harassment because, well, he's my father, and I also don't want to embarrass him in front of the community since, we have a big business. There's also the issue that my father is so well known around here and respected, I worry the police would not even take it seriously if I escalate the issue, then I'll look like the fool. My father isn't exactly known for behavior like this. It would shock the public if they found out. He keeps calling me, threatening to destroy my life if I don't, quote, explain this away to my mother. I've talked to my mom a few times since the big old blow-up at the Chili family cook-off, and I've been supportive of her. I love my mother, and absolutely none of this situation is her fault. It's not her fault she has an unfaithful, dirty husband who was selfish and did not care about his family at all or the future of his business. I've told my dad numerous times that the last thing I plan on doing is calling my mom and telling her to just get over it and move on. She needs time to grieve and process the fact that my father cheated on her, and I am not going to suggest she forgives this man unless she feels in her heart like she's ready to do so. I understand that my parents breaking up for good is a possibility here, but I don't want my mother with a man who doesn't respect her or the boundaries of their relationship. I visit the family home today. My father, he was there, drunk as a skunk, harassing me and trying to intimidate me into, quote, fixing everything. I just want to visit my mom, but I have to leave because my father was scaring me with his behavior. Update number 2. Hey guys, I'm back for another update, much requested. I noticed a lot of you are telling me to get far away from my father, and I understand and respect where you're all coming from. Believe me, I'm trying to keep my distance here. I've blocked his phone number so he can't harass me all day while I'm at home or work. Unfortunately, things just keep getting worse though, by the minute. My boss pulled me into her office at work the other day and told me that there had been some rumors circulating amongst the office about me being a thief and also a drug addict, and all of this other just nonsense. I could not believe what I was hearing from her mouth, so I asked what the source of all this tomfoolery was, and she just told me that the office had been receiving phone calls from an anonymous tipster, who was apparently warning my workplace about how terrible I am. Well, as you could probably imagine, I was perplexed at first, but then it hit me like a ton of bricks. My father was likely behind this. I explained the whole situation to my boss, and if you read this far, you know there was a lot to tell. I explained it all, almost word for word, because I didn't want my boss or my coworkers to believe this absolute dumpster garbage about me. When I explained what exactly I had going on with my mother and father, my boss changed her tune. She played me one of those voicemails that had been left at the office complaining about me, and sure enough, it was my father's voice. He tried to change his voice a bit, but he sounded drunk as a skunk. I even played my boss a voicemail my father had sent me just to prove that, hey, this is the same person. My boss and coworkers, well, I could tell by their face they were relieved, but it was still mighty embarrassing and invasive of my father to do this. I unblocked him. I told him one last time he needs to leave me alone or face the dire consequences. But he was stubborn. A stubborn narcissist like he always has been. It's impossible to get through to him, and he just kept demanding that I apologize to not just him, but apologize to my mother as well for ruining their marriage. Could you believe the audacity? I hung up on this jerk. Update number 3. Hey guys, thanks everybody for reading this far and being supportive all along the way. I'm back for another quick update for those who are interested, so it's official. My mother, she filed for divorce, and she moved out of the family home to stay in a hotel. She's officially separating from my father, and I called her to literally congratulate her. I told her that she was welcome to stay with me if need be for as long as that needed. I told her I'd be there to support her every step of the way. And I told her I was proud of her for having the bravery inside to do this. By now, I've lost most of the goodwill I might have had left towards my father, so I'm definitely team mom on this one. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, my father is not too pleased about this at all. And to make matters worse, my mother has decided to take her chunk of the family business elsewhere. I think my father's so delusional he's probably more upset about the damage done to his business than he is about the dissolution of his own family. Wow. It shows how much we should care about him, right? I guess my father never dreamed he would get caught being unfaithful to my mom, because he evidently did not take much of any precautions to protect his assets in the event of a divorce. No prenup was signed. And the way the family business was set up, my mother now owned a greater share of the business than my father owned. It makes sense that he's now scrambling for a way to get what he wants from all this. He's not getting his way, and he's not handling it well at all. The phone and workplace harassment I've been suffering at the hands of my crazy father has thankfully ceased. But now my father's taken to delivering letters in the mail. The letters keep getting more and more incoherent, and I can tell he's not sending them through the post office, because there's a new letter every single day. The mail is not that fast. Not at all. I can tell he's delivering these letters by hand in the middle of the night, and I'm worried he's going to do something just absolutely crazy. I'm not comfortable with my father visiting my home. Update number 4. Hey guys, I'm back. I'm having trouble processing everything that just happened, and I need to get it off my chest. Things have escalated, and the unthinkable has happened. I can't believe it. I'll do my best to explain everything coherently. But I'm still shaking and crying after what just happened. So in my last update, I explained that my mother had officially filed for divorce and left my father. My father had recently taken to hand-delivering letters to my mailbox in the middle of the night. All of these harassing letters were full of threats and demands, each one telling me that I need to fix my father's marriage and make things right between my parents. Luckily, I've kept a paper trail and a cyber trail of every single instance of harassment I've suffered at the hands of my father thus far. And it's coming in handy because my father finally crossed the line tonight. Around 10 o'clock a few hours ago, I got a loud knock on my door. You see, it startled me because I was just about to fall asleep. The loud banging and knocking continued, and I heard my father's voice demanding that I open up. Against my better judgment, I decided to answer that door. My father and I got into a pretty heated argument, more like a screaming match. It was awful. Here was this man who I used to look up to and love so much, and he was obviously drunk at my doorstep. He was screaming at me and calling me names, telling me that I was horrible, a disappointment of a daughter, and he told me that I'd die with the guilt of having ruined his marriage. That's when I went off on him. I told my dad the truth in plain terms. Hey, listen, buddy. The marriage fell apart because of his actions and his own, narcissism and hubris. I told him it did not matter if he had a fancy car or a successful business. He was a loser. A big old fat loser in my eyes, and always would be. My dad looked at me hurt, and that's when he punched me right in the face. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I fell to the ground and hit my head, but I was conscious enough to close the door and lock it as fast as I could. I called the police, and they rushed there and arrested my father ASAP. Guys, I don't know what's about to happen next, but I wanted to tell you all what's happened so far. Update number 5. OP is back for one final update, and well, After my father assaulted me, I decided to press charges against him for assault and all the harassment he'd put me and my mother through. It's been a while since my last update, sorry about that, but the court process moved so darn slow. My father had a great legal team of expensive lawyers he was using to fight us. And then something wonderful happened. Do you remember Lena? Oh, Lena, the mistress, 24 years old, my father was hooking up with on my mother. Apparently, she wanted father to marry her. Obviously, she wanted a piece of his fortune before my mom and I ended up getting most of it. Well, guess what? My father told her no, and then the bombshell was dropped. The whole reason I know all this is because it's all over the local news. So, I told my father that, well, he was well known in the community, right? And now he's well known for something much different. Turns out the harassment and assault charges were the least of my father's concerns. Oh, Lena. She outed my father for falsifying business records, fabricating tax records, and using fraud accounts to steal money from the company. Lena. She was into much dirt that I and my mother knew about. Nothing of this. We knew my father wasn't exactly an honest man, but we still thought that he was at least an honest businessman. Turns out we were wrong. As I type this update today from the comfort of my home, where my mother has recently moved to, I might add, and things are doing great, by the way. My father, he sits in a prison cell, probably eating a cold meal or some stale potato chips that's been on the bunk for months. That's right. We won't have to deal with him ever again. When Lena did not get the marriage she wanted out of the fling she conducted with my father, she sold him down the river. Now my father's lost his marriage, he's lost his business, and he's even lost his cute little mistress. His name is disgraced. It's been hard to get used to, honestly. I'm glad my father's been put away where he can't hurt anybody else, but it's still hard for me and Ma just to get used to life without him. It's hard finding out that someone you knew and loved for oh so long was actually secretly a different person than you even knew. Well, it's hard to cope with the fact, but me and Mom are doing the best that we can. It helps that my mother got to keep every single penny of my father's fortune, so he can't use his money or his lawyers to go after us once he gets out of jail. So, that's it. Thank you everybody for reading this with me. My life has been turned upside down, but now me and Mother can finally get some peace and quiet. Well, until the next year's chili cook-off. Alright guys, so this story was very unique. You know what they say, you don't actually know someone until you know someone. Well, it turns out OP's father was actually not that good of a man, and well, now he's in prison. I would like to hear from you guys what exactly you thought about this story. Do you think OP handled it properly, or do you think that OP could have done something a bit different? I would love to hear from you, so drop a comment down below. By the way, if you're new to the channel, there's going to be a massively huge mother-in-law saga coming up in the next week or so. That's not one you're going to want to miss out on. It's an hour-and-a-half exclusive with every single update possible. So, stay tuned for that. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. I'll see ya.